Hi, I'm Heidi Waterhouse. I'm a transformation advocate from LaunchDarkly, and we're really excited to be here at Build and to be sponsoring. And one of the things we want to talk to you about is the number one question that we get when we go to events, which is, how do you deal with the technical debt? So I've put together a little presentation that I'm going to give you, and then we invited one of our customers, Mark Burry from iPipeline, to join us and talk about how it is that we put these things together. So I hope that you will sit down and enjoy a little bit of time talking about how we can make technical debt and feature flags way less intimidating. Let's talk about how you can manage technical debt with feature flags by using VS Code, GitHub, and Teams. When I talk about how feature management and feature flags work, one of the first things people ask me is, how do you manage the technical debt that's inherent in coding this way? And I think that's a really great question, but also kind of the wrong question, because we're all incurring technical debt all the time just by making anything. So what we really need is a set of best practices that mean we don't incur unreasonable amounts of technical debt. So let's talk about what a feature flag is. A feature flag is a moment in time that you can control code that you've already deployed. They help you separate deployment, which is a technical decision, from release, which is a business decision. You can deploy code without having to release it to all users. This is how you test in production safely. There are lots of benefits to feature flags beyond managing releases, like experimentation and operations flags to do all sorts of things like API control and customer levels. Feature flags have a lot of different patterns of use, but the ones that I want to focus on are the ones that are most likely to incur technical debt. We want to avoid technical debt wherever possible, so let's think about the feature flags that are most likely to incur technical debt, which are the ones that are short-lived or temporary, things that are used for releases or experiments or other things that happen and then stop happening. So when I'm thinking about this, I think it's important to remember that feature management is a part of your whole stack. Even if we've abstracted away all the layers under the one that we're working on, they haven't stopped existing. Someone has done work on those, and by that token, someone has made mistakes or trade-offs or committed technical debt that you may accidentally run into. It's just useful to remember that when you're thinking about how technical debt is going to work. Technical debt is inevitable. There's no work that can happen without technical debt. It's always happening. We're always borrowing from tomorrow to make today possible. Just like we borrow money to build houses and buildings and to go to college, we're borrowing from the future when we create something that isn't somehow perfectly optimized for what we're going to need in the future, which we don't even know. So that's a moment where we have to realize that we are always going to incur technical debt, but we can decide how we want to administer it. So if nothing's going to save you from it, let's make sure that it's as easy as possible. Taking on home ownership debt is one thing. You have this appreciating, resource that you're going to use. But taking on credit card debt is sometimes something entirely different, and the interest payments can be really very high. And we want to avoid technical debt that is like bad credit card debt. The technical debt from feature flags is divided into permanent and long-lived flags and temporary flags. And this again is about temporary flags. Let's start with naming conventions. You may have a style guide for code with conventions on how to write it so that you put the capitals in the right place and you use camel case and you use underscores, whatever it is that you use for your naming conventions. You want to use that same sort of system for naming your feature flags. And before you create your first flag, come up with some conventions to be used. We really recommend verbose flag names. This is not a good time to be terse. The more clear you can make the flag name, the more clearly other people can understand the intent behind it and use it appropriately, even if you're not right there. Name conventions can help you quickly identify flags that need to be removed from code. So you want to be descriptive about a flag's behavior. You want to include a prefix that has a project or team name so you know roughly who it belongs to. you want to indicate whether the flag is temporary or permanent, you might want to include a creation date for the flag. This is really helpful when you're clearing up flags so that you can just run through and say, look, this flag is, N number of days old and it's fully deployed. I guess we can just remove it and go ahead with the system the way it is. I really like to think of flag names as little signposts for my future self. The next thing you want to do is minimize scope. You want the smallest unit of logic needed for the most responsive flag. If there are multiple parts of a feature that have to work together, create a leader flag and dependent flags under that. I always say that if you have to use the word "and" when you're describing the function of a flag, you actually have two flags and you should break them up. Another strategy that customers use for temporary flags in the pre-launch stage is creating the branch, removing the flag from your code when you create the flag. So when you're already in this space and you know what the flag is going to do and you know how the code is going to behave after the flag is removed, you can just write all that code at once instead of having to context switch back to do it. So here's what you do. You push the flag code so that you have something to write behind. And then you write the new flag behind that so that you know what's going on. Then you're going to create a branch to remove that flag while it's still fresh in your heads. The code may change before this branch is merged, but at least it gives you a solid place to start when it comes time to clean up the code. So now you've written the flag and you've written the after state of the flag, and you have stashed the after state so you don't have to think about it. It's all attached to the same piece of code. It's just not active yet. It's like a flag for a flag. And when it comes time to remove it, maybe a few weeks later, you have this head start on removing a temporary flag because you don't have to think about what you're doing. You already thought about what you were doing and you already wrote it. So you just have to mechanically do this. And that's going to be super useful for you, especially if you're dealing with a large number of rapidly moving flags. Another thing we offer is code references. This is a tool that identifies where feature flags are used in your code base and automatically updates these references every time you commit to GitHub. So your code base has all of these little markers that go off and they are attached to the feature flag. So when you say, I wonder how many places this feature flag appears, you can go look that up easily. You can also double check that your flag composition and construction are correct and remove flags when you no longer need them without having to sort through all of your code base. This really helps you maintain the code base so that there is as little technical debt as possible. We are really excited that we have this integration with Microsoft Teams that provides a single pane of glass for all feature flag related changes. I'm going to talk with Mark Burry, and he's going to tell us how his team at iPipeline uses Teams in order to not just do reminders to remove expired flags, but also to do audit and approvals so that they can understand what's getting committed and what it's going to do at a team level without ever having to leave their Microsoft Teams environment. So that's a super convenient way for them to administer their LaunchDarkly feature management without ever having to leave Microsoft Teams. Other tools that we've included to help you manage technical debt are a way to archive flags in case you want to keep some part of that or retain it for archival purposes so that you don't have to recreate it from scratch. We allow you to compare and copy flag settings and conditions from one environment to another. We offer debugging services to help you dive into what's going on with the flag if you're having problems with it. And we offer all of these reminders to help you keep on top of your feature flags so that you don't end up with too many feature flags to administer well. I'm going to talk with Mark Burry, and I hope that we have this great conversation that you'll learn from. If you want even more about feature flags, we have a sponsor page that we'd be happy to share with you, and you can go ahead and find out more about LaunchDarkly here in my URL or at the LaunchDarkly sponsor page here at Microsoft Build. Thanks for listening. I hope that was informative, but I always feel like it's more useful when we have real clients talk to people about what they're really doing, which is why we invited our friend Mark Burry to come on and talk to us a little bit about what he's doing at iPipeline to make feature flags from LaunchDarkly work really seamlessly with all of his systems. Now, Mark, I know that you said you had an integration with Teams a couple months ago. How's that been working out for you?
Really well. So we kind of watch it like a hawk. So we have our audits from LaunchDarkly going into Teams, and the constant kind of feed into the Teams channel that we have enables us to monitor what changes are being made to flags, when it's being released, who's been targeting, that kind of stuff. So it's working really well for us to have that continuous feedback loop into Teams with any changes in our production environments through LaunchDarkly.
So that's sort of alerty. Do you have any of the things set up that say, hey, this flag is maybe a little bit old. Maybe you should think about it, taking it out? Is that an integration you've added yet?
That is something that we have, yes, and a particular bugbear of my own. So we have set ourselves a tight goal to make sure that we stick to short-lived flags for most of the development that we're doing, and a 3-month time frame. So kind of the dream that we are slowly getting towards, don't get me wrong, some of them live longer than 3 months, is that we get alerted when they are released and then removed from master, our repos, and then also constantly being alerted, well, this is older than 3 months. Are you ready to delete it yet? Sort of a gentle prompt to think about getting the flag removed.
I think that seems great. And hopefully the gentle prompts don't get so annoying that people turn off the alerting, which is, in my experience, what people do.
If they do, then I'm there to be like, that still needs to be. So yeah, so far no one's turned it off that they have told me.
Well, that's great. So one of the things I talked about was how much easier it is to handle a lot of flags if you have naming conventions. What kind of enforcement are you going to use for naming conventions at your organization? Like, how do you know that you're keeping it to temporary flags?
So we have a in-house built application that we run on a daily basis that does a number of checks for naming conventions. So we have a set rule that the sort of flag reads like a sentence, and we pre-note suffix ours with enabled, essentially, so that all flags are a conversation really with whoever is querying them, and enabled state at the end. The majority of our flags are Boolean flags, so they're sort of on-off flags, so it's fairly straightforward in that sense. And tagging as well. So we've got conventions for tagging in there as well to make sure that we have teams tagged, that are developing them, who's responsible for them, what project it was related to, all of the kind of stuff to keep monitoring it so that we don't lose sight of where the flag is, or I guess who's responsible for removing it and at some point.
Right. I think that's a really key point, is that you need to have some kind of setup that allows for team members to move and switch and maybe not have the same responsibility. So how would you say you're using your standards to enforce that?
So the main thing really is using code references as well, and commenting in code references. So it's not a case of one person is the only person that knows what the flag's doing or anything along those lines. So although generally one person is kind of implementing the flag, as a shared knowledge of what it's doing, why it's there, where it is in code base, which is where code references is amazing for us, because it's obviously throughout all of our repos, and we can just kind of look at code references and be like, well, it's here, 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 and here, and here's why it's relevant. So kind of enforcing the code references as well means that we, again, don't lose sight of flags that we've maybe forgotten about over here that we don't touch too regularly, because you can't delete it because it's in a code reference. So it's a great prompt there to be like, well, you haven't actually technically deleted it yet, so you need to go over here and delete it. But having those conventions in place mean that it's sort of not one person's responsibility. There's a shared knowledge of everyone's responsibility to maintain the flag.
That's great. how do you train people on a tool when it's not new anymore? So this is a thing that I notice a lot at companies. It's like you get a new tool and everybody gets trained in how it works, and that's great. But now, like, the one person comes on, and how do you enforce all of that training for the new person?
So we've written a couple of in-house sort of cookbooks from a developer standpoint and from a deletion and maintenance point of view. So here's what our company stance is with, like, say, naming conventions, tagging, short-lived cycles, that kind of stuff. So if a new member of staff comes on, we have a few places they can go, and then really by doing. So if someone comes on, they don't really necessarily maybe fully understand what feature flagging is, etc. The power of just like, here's a bit of code, here's now not a bit of code sort of thing is quite powerful. We've had it a few times where, like, oh wow, you didn't have to deploy, you just hit a button and it changed the production environment to now be doing X rather than Y.
That's great. I think it's so powerful to show people by letting them do something. Can you talk a little bit more about how you integrated the request approval functionality into your Microsoft Teams audit channel? I know we talked about how you had somebody had an alert that was like, you should probably delete this, but how do you handle, you should probably let me turn this on?
So we turned on, I want to say December, when approvals were sort of rolled out, almost the day after, because pre that day, by maybe a week, we had an incident where a flag was turned on but rolled out to everyone for a very short amount of time, but it was identified through the audit post and we managed to catch it in time. However, with the approval process, that same request is going into a Teams channel, everyone's being alerted to it, and seeing what the change is as well. So it gets picked up by not just necessarily the person who's been tagged to do the approval, but also anyone that is viewing that channel, myself being one of those, can monitor and look at what changes is going in and really sort of catch anything that might be going astray. But since the approval request has been in there and pushing to Teams, we haven't had any problems, because it's been a case of, oh, you just need to tweak this or you need to tweak that before they get approved. So that kind of sense check that happens with a broad alert, you get an email as well if you are the one to do the approval, and then that visibility in Teams. Again, going back to, it's not just one person, the whole team across test and developers have that visibility, which is more than one occasion been someone else who isn't responsible for it has picked up and said, "Are you sure you want to do that right now?"
So what you're saying is, with enough Microsoft Teams channel, all bugs are shallow?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's kind of inspiring. Let's just go ahead and collide those worlds together.
Yes.
All right. So speaking of that, how are you using the fitness functions with Microsoft Teams to ensure that the flags are configured properly? You said you had rules about like it getting tagged and everything, and that was sort of enforced. How are you doing that?
So we have two checks, really. We have a daily and a weekly check. So on a daily basis, we are utilizing the APIs within LaunchDarkly to look at all of the names, tags, life cycles, that kind of stuff, and then running our queries against them to then post into Teams. Here's where this one, is not named correctly. Here's where this one is, like I said earlier, missing the suffix of enabled, and this one's not got the tags for the repos, because we have some monitoring around flags having to be in master as well. So to try and alleviate all the problems you have with, everyone spinning up a flag because it's so straightforward and so easy, you lose track of all of that if everyone's doing it. So having that constantly poll every day to monitor the really important ones, and then on a weekly basis, that's when we do our sort of prompts, because as much as we want to roll out flags, you have third-party dependencies as well. So some we've done our work, but the third party hasn't yet. So just a refresher to be like, don't forget about this flag that we know we're still waiting on it, but don't forget about it, because you're going to want to get rid of it at some point. But all of that, again, posting into Teams just means that it's a shared responsibility. It's not just person A, person B, team X, team Y. It's across departments, across companies sort of thing.
That's cool. I think that the idea of using this as a way to actually introduce a little friction into creating a flag so that you have less to clean up on the technical debt side. It's like, just stop and think about this a little bit.
So I mean, on that, one of the things is that having that in almost day one, those checks, we are thinking about the technical debt before we've even implemented the flag, which having all those posts means that even really before you put it in code, just thinking about naming and visibility day one has ruled out a lot of problems we've had with understanding what flags are doing, maybe longer than 3 months, like I was saying, but you don't get to a point 6 months down the line where you've like, well, this one hasn't got a description, so I don't know what it is, who's doing what, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a really great point. What's the thing that you worry most about technical debt with feature flags? Like, what keeps you up at night?
It used to be 18-month-old flags that were nested with flags underneath flags, and I think going back to that state where we kind of have too many flags underneath other flags, which is, perfectly acceptable. But then when it comes to deleting in that chain, it just becomes a bit more fun. And the main stance that we've tried to get to is that as scary as the cleanup of technical debt is, it's almost a non-event because it's been monitored and visibility has been high throughout the flag's entire cycle. And I guess getting to a point where people turn off the notifications so they don't get these prompts.
That makes sense. I think that one of the things we see a lot of people worry about is that teams would independently create sort of their own idiolect for feature flags, and it wouldn't be the same as other teams, and that would create a lot of debt. So you're saying there's like this built-in top-down control that doesn't let you create like weird one-off things.
Yes. Yeah. So I think if you've created a flag, we give you about 2 weeks to get it into master, and then after that we'll start sort of prompting you like what are you doing with this flag, where's it going, what's kind of happening, which sounds kind of like Big Brothery a little bit, but it helps us to maintain that understanding of all our flags in flight across departments, across projects, across teams, so that there isn't the case of, well, such and such, me for example, has set up 15 flags, where are they? Are they in production? What are they doing, sort of thing.
Yeah, I heard today something about a major enterprise organization that has 30,000 flags right now.
Wow.
And we're all just like, I mean, you can. There's no technical restriction on having that many flags, but do you know what they're all doing? You're just checking. So what would you think the sort of ideal number of temporary flags would be per developer? That's a hard one. Sorry.
That's a good one. I mean, at any one time, we've kind of generally got around 15 to 20 flags in each sort of repo. But again, I sort of would say that because we share the responsibility of it, it's not necessarily one person responsible for it. So that kind of risk and fear factor of one person being the gatekeeper to a flag is a little bit mitigated by all these notifications that we have and shared knowledge of our flags across the environments and repos and departments and that kind of stuff. But I think generally probably 10 to 15 per person, really. And that's mainly because we are getting better at keeping them short-lived. But we're not quite there yet.
There are a lot of good use cases for long-lived or permanent flags. Mm-hmm. And that's why I like these are different categories. A long-lived flag is going to give you like operational control on an ongoing basis. And the shorter flags are for experimentation and deployment and events that you do want to pull out. And so we can't really count long-lived flags as technical debt. They're just operational controls.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, so the reason I asked sort of per developer is because this is how I think of resourcing a company, right? Like you need a technical writer per 20 developers.
Mm-hmm.
So like 15 flags per developer, more than that, and you're sort of getting out of the range of like what is controllable by that group.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Purely because there's only so much someone can remember over a certain amount of time. So with that in mind, they want to be able to like be questioned to the point of what's this one, where is this, and be able to sort of say, oh, it's here and here, and not have to try and scratch your brain, remember which code base you've got that flag in, that kind of stuff. And again, that's where the code references, you almost don't have to do it because you guys are doing it all for us, because it's like, oh, it's here and here, don't worry about it, or oh, it's over there, but you need to think about that one.
Right. I think I'm glad it's useful. I think that was a thing that we added after a lot of questions, but we weren't sure people would actually use it in production, and we're glad to see that people do.
Yes, so, we use it a lot.
A lot. There you are. You know what's in your code, and you can look at it and pull it out and activate on it, whatever you need. Mm-hmm. So we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask if there was anything else that you wanted to tell the worldwide Microsoft Build audience about what you're doing.
So I guess from our point of view, we are integrating feature flags into our whole process. And as far as our software is concerned, we are continually deploying continuous deployments through the power of flags. So from our point of view, the feature flagging has been pivotal to us being able to deploy through environments, mitigating risk to the level that they almost become non-events. They certainly haven't been in the past. So being able to deploy through an environment with feature flagging through all the routes that we deploy has been amazing. And from an iPipeline point of view, we are continuing to push boundaries in the financial software space. So watch this space for future developments within iPipeline.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time, Mark. And I hope that all of you who joined us for this session had a great and informative time, and that we will see you around the Build campus, as it were. Thank you.
Thank you.